They were saying recently, Abahambe, they let them go to United States. When they go to United States, they say, hey, Mababuye, they are cowards. But what is it that we want? I mean, you were saying, no, let them go. Every politician was saying, let them go. When they go to United States, you are complaining. And what makes you think that if these guys, they've expropriated land, they will give it to the people? They've stolen everything that needs to be stolen. The best way to transform is to build new things, like the Afrikaners when they came. The English were there. They did not say, the English, give us your minds. They said, you know what, we're going to start our things. Sample. They started Abo Sosol. They started, Abo South African railways, infrastructure. They employed poor Afrikaners. The ANC should have done that. Instead of renaming streets and projects and clinics, they should have built more things. They had the capacity, they had the money. Here in South Africa, they're like in prison. We don't have a Traore. We can't go to Botswana and say, help us. We can't go to Zimbabwe. At least, Bona. And one thing I like about white people, they'll never leave their own, wherever, where they are. Whether it's in China, they will come out. It is the right thing to do, They speak for themselves. They speak for their own. And then we have a problem with that. And therefore, I cannot criticize them because they're standing up to a bully. The ANC is bullying us all, even if they falter in their fight. And for me, to be honest, I wish Nami, I could go to United States because there is a genocide in this country. We're being killed, the roads are being spiked, we don't have borders, people are coming, we've got new crimes that never existed. And farmers, in the main, they never, experienced so much killings pre-94 as opposed to now. Even in our cities, we are being killed, not as darkies, and we have no way to run. I will run to United States if I had to run away from black communities the same way as the ANC puppet leaders, they run away from Soweto to Thamsanqa. They're running away from their own people because they cannot live where they govern. They know that, they are terrible. That's why they follow white people wherever they go. They go to Stain City, Santin. Rivonia today is deteriorating. Santin is deteriorating. Their potholes, robots are not working in every city. We've got Abonyaupe conducting traffic, Abonyaupe killing robots so that they can conduct traffic for a song and monies. And they know that, our cities are dilapidated. The ANC leaders don't live with the people. They are protected. They are shielded by blue lights. And these guys, they're using black anger to empower themselves. They're using black poverty the same way as they crafted BEE laws, not to empower black people. That's why I hate BEE. I hate BEE laws because these guys, they're using BEE to go bargain to Rupert, to the open hammers and say, you know what, if you don't put me here, as one of the shareholders, these guys, they're gonna come and take it, they'll take all of it and destroy it. And now, before 1994, I didn't see people from Soweto by Mafamin, killing people, because remember, the Afrikaners, they are Christian people, they're patriarchal, all those things. They taught us that, we're Christian in this country. Thou shalt not kill. So thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. We believed in Christ, it's in the main. But the people who are coming here, of late, the government of the day was supposed to intervene. All these guys, we check whenever there's a farm killing, there's always a Zimbabwe, because I've seen, my people behaving worse, subjecting their own, and it's even worse when you're subjected by your own people, abusing them. Women, before they get jobs, the Pagamaspala municipalities, sex for jobs. Afrikaners never did that. I don't remember, our sisters coming back. But before we get employed at municipalities, these guys, they sleep with us. Yeah, away, Sanmarani Makaya, and everywhere where you find yourself. So I'm sitting in a studio. Yesterday, I think 2 days ago, I was in a shopping complex and one colored couples, they came to me and they said, what happened to your videos in the car? I like the videos in the car because they say when I sit like that, they know good, yeah, scandals and stuff, things will be coming up left and right and center. So yeah, watching the camera over there and camera over there, it's taking me back to my years, when I was a model and actor. I was a promising actor, and people liked me. Then as an actor, I also had haters because I would go to taverns and, guys, who said I watch TV? People say I don't watch TV. So, and when we are in front of the cameras, there'll be light action cameras and, smoke. So, yeah, it feels edited, but yeah, I'm going to try to keep it cool, And today would be talking about issues, that are affecting South Africans, be it land expropriation. But before that, I want to talk about myself a bit, in relation to land, because these are issues that we've been tackling, ever since, I joined politics. I joined politics when I was, I think, 11 to 12. My sister was always, talking about politics, Abu Mandela, Martin Luther, and I was, that kid who was, interested. I kept on asking questions. Who's Sobukwe? Who's Stephen Biko? Even when Stephen Biko died, she's the one who told me, they just killed the black conscious leader. So that's why when people today, when they're talking about who's the best leader in South Africa and people choosing whether Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki, Cyril Ramaphosa, I say I've seen better. You cannot choose me to a Jacob Zuma. I've seen better. When I was born, Stephen Biko was still alive. Robert Sobukwe was still alive. Mutuping was still alive. Who's this guy from Senegal? And this guy from was replaced by Traore, in terms of his way of doing things. Thomas Sankara of Upper Volte, I think it's now called Burkina Faso. So was still alive. So Steel Mashinini was still alive. So I've got a better reference than these Khotanis that we have now. They're talking land, they're talking about kill the poor, kill the farmers. They're doing so not because they love black people or they love their constituency. They are hungry. They just want to, irritate those captains of industries enough so that they open doors for them. They're using black anger, to open doors for them personally and their families. They're using, slogans, shouting, kill the Boer. I sang kill the Boer, kill the farmer when it was dangerous in the 80s, back in then when it was still relevant. And for now, it's quite interesting, all those who believing in Freedom Charter, your ANC, because they always claim that they are a broad church, which means that they include everyone, communists, socialists, white, black, Indians, coloreds. And now when they use terminology such as our people, Thabo Mbeki asked them, a valid question when he said, who is our people? The ANC, when they say our people, who are they talking about? Are they talking about whites? Because they say they are a multiracial organization, they are a broad church. Who's our people? Are white farmers not their people? Are coloreds not their people? Are Indians not their people? Are blacks not their people? Who is our people? So that is another question, which they have not answered. For me, in 1994, I said, it doesn't matter whether the president is white or black. I know my team will disagree with me. They will interject if they want to. But for me, it doesn't matter if the state president is black or white, as long as, I know that my needs are covered. I'm, satisfied, schooling, my kids, work, infrastructure, rather than to have one of my own and you find that the country is worse, than it was before. So I'm not, in the struggle to replace faces, a black face by a yellow face. For me, it's, about things that I can see, material things that I can see on the ground. So when people talk of land, majority of those people, who are talking land, they've had farms. I mean, Julius Malema had farms. It was, a cabbage, producer. And I wonder how many people who can claim that I was fed because of Julius Malema's farm. Thandi Modise had a farm, a big farm, a pig farm, and she killed the pigs. How difficult can it be? How difficult can it be? Pigs eat anything. They can eat the groovy cans, they can eat, but they died under Thandi Modise and the Speaker of Parliament. And what makes you think that if these guys, they've expropriated land, they will give it to the people? They have stolen everything that needs to be stolen. Right now, you've got your Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, they're owning companies here, Abo Mint, and people are saying, what about Alexander Renewal Project, which was, talking about land at some point, parks and, schools and, public buildings and infrastructure. That's part of land. What happened to the 3 billions missing, and they point towards the Alexander Mafia. These guys, they've stolen 500 million. 500 million. I remember during Mandela's era, 1994, they said 128 million rands was stolen, money that was allocated for RDP. We're shocked because we've never had such amounts, during the gravy trains. 128, it was a lot of money, millions. Now they've introduced us to a billion, like I was saying, a billion. Now money is, they're starting to be looted in billions and trillions. Today we are told that since ANC came into the picture, 3 trillions was stolen. That money was enough to change black lives. If black lives, it's what they are concerned about. It was enough to change Soweto to be like Sentin. I often say that even if you don't have land, that money was enough. Look at other countries, both Vietnam, both Korea, both Finland. They don't have the resources that we have, but there are people, they live. They live longer. And it is quite amazing that, these people who are thugs, they've been looting. Today they're talking with, we need to investigate if we can charge Afriforum with treason. The ANC has been treasonous enough, When Mbalula came, we had a railway system, in our country. Today there is none. Itimel, we had infrastructure. It can rain for 40 days and 40 nights. After 10 days, you'll be told to use the water sparingly. What happened to the bridges? And building of bridges which channel waters, to, our rivers and dams. None of that is happening. And I've jotted down a couple of things, that I needed to discuss and pertaining to the land issue. And especially this one, but expropriation without compensation, which, has become, a huge talking point. And our constitution, if you remember, section 25, it talks about, property. It told us, I'm looking at you, it's like you want to say something.
I wanted you to explain the act a little more, but it seems as though you're doing that already.
The act, the section 25, was talking about the expropriating or taking land, and it lays down, the conditions or measures on how to take land, but then it included the compensation. You could expropriate for public use, you could expropriate, for various, reasons which are listed under section 25, but now the contention or the contentious issue has always been without compensation, and I, for one, I've got a personal experience of land removals and dispossession, and in the 50s my family had land at Dandi. They normally say but amalahle at Dandi lwekalo but ngokubisela amalahle at Dandi. We had a farm. Our farm was not under Ingonyama Trust, independent. My great grandfather had a farm where moved to a new castle, on a dry land. Our farm expropriated, by government of the day. So I know what I'm talking about. But the issue that I have, with the government of the day, I know most activists, They'll say I mustn't bring the whataboutism, but I will bring the whataboutism because there is massive land under former homeland leaders like Ingonyama Trust. There is land under a government. And it is okay for me to judge a person on a smaller amount of money. Which if you cannot manage 10 rands, what can you do with 50 billion? Which we have seen what has happened with this government. So I don't trust. I've got trust issues with the ANC. And if the farmers, they fed us all along, and I know for a fact, not everyone wants to be a farmer. There are those people who want to be farmers. And majority of them, they were never supported. In my family, you see naked babies moving up and down in street dogs. And the ANC government has done nothing. An avocado farm, all of a sudden, it fell in flat, potato farms, under these ANC guys. And what makes black people think that if these guys expropriated land, it shall be given, to the very same people other than the ZANU PF style that we've seen, in Zimbabwe. For me, it doesn't matter the most because I know for a fact, there are few people maybe want to farm. And it's very interesting, when they talk about land, they exclude, your sky, what do they call it? Technology.
AI?
No, there's this... I'll remember it now. When you're talking about the skies, because you cannot just do anything, in the air there, in telecommunications and, So they exclude that. The sea waters, they exclude that. And they don't talk about mines that are owned by, who's this King of England? Where Cyril Ramaphosa has shares and the Mutsipes of this world. But yeah, it is quite interesting. But for me, I will say this, if the Afrikaners, they're farming the land and they're producing, the question is, what is the problem? What is the problem if they're farming land and you are getting food, you are getting maize, mealies, you're getting avocados, apples. The question is, what is the land? Do you want to replace that by a white remove a white face and put a black face? To me, it's neither here nor there. What matters is that I am served. Like Big Porter said, it doesn't matter the color of the cat, whether the cat it's black or white, as long as it can catch mouse. He spoke about the zebra. I think it's Mandela who spoke about the color of the cat. Big Porter spoke about the zebra. He says South Africa is like a zebra. There's black and white line and white line. I'm looking at you and I can see that your face goes like this. It's not.
No, I wanted to ask in regards to the act, right?
Yes.
So I just wanted us to read it so that we really understand, because I don't think they...
I'll tell you this. For me, what matters, I'll tell you this about South African politics. And sometimes, even when you are watching the news, that's why it's for a long time, I think since COVID, I'm fatigued by these politicians and politics because nothing changes. It's still the same. I can look at the act, I'll know what they're talking about. The issue that they were having, sleepless night, is that issue of compensation that they need to expropriate. They need to fast track, expropriation and take land. And we have seen what has happened to Zimbabwe. And I can tell you, this land that they're talking about, much of it is going to be taken by the so-and-so in political ivory towers. And the West will always respond. Sanctions, and these ANC guys, they don't have a response. He talks about that, expropriating without a compensation. And sometimes as a person, I normally say you need to distinguish between wisdom and intelligence. Sometimes you can win an argument, and lose at the end. At what cost? At what cost do you want to win? Because our politicians sometimes they want to be the last one, or the last ones. If compensation, it will settle the score. I know there's a issue about with the people are inflating prices, but like now, we are facing the United States. They've got more than 600 companies. And then you want to antagonize the United States. And you think that China is going to come to your rescue. China is not going to rescue you. Chinese, they are takers. They are selling you stuff. They are taking your raw material. They are bringing their employees. And you want to antagonize people who are contributing to your economy, helping your people. I normally say this. Black people will complain and say, yeah, Van der Merwe is racist there. But I said, but there is a company owned by Van der Merwe where you are employed. Show me one of your comrades, Saudi, who's got a company where you are working. The guys, they're looting our monies. They're buying cars. They're buying champagnes for slave queens. White people create institutions. They were saying recently, Abahambe, let them go to United States. When they go to United States, they say, hey, Mababu, they are cowards. But what is it that we want? I mean, you were saying, no, let them go. Every politician was saying, let them go. When they go to United States, you are complaining. And I find it, very interesting. Even the Democrats in the United States, white Democrats, they are opposing the white farmers, 49 people there.
They say that is 59.
Yeah, even if it's 80, even if it's 200, that figure is still very small. Even if all Afrikaners, went to United States, that figure is still too small, compared to the Latinos, people from Venezuela coming there, Nigerians going there, and people who are not contributing, who are joining gangs, killing them, raping them. It's just that they are against Donald Trump. So anything that is done by Donald Trump, it ought to be wrong. For me, I don't have issues, when Afrikaners were mobilizing, against the ANC government, which is a criminal government, which is treasonous government. The ANC, they did mobilize against apartheid, which was, a crime against humanity, apartheid. They mobilized, they sanctioned us because of ANC. They called for sanction, engage in armed struggles, shooting toilets, where we also got affected, bombing OMP buildings. Lots of people, when South Africa faced hardcore sanctions, lots of black people lost jobs. Many of the ANC guys, they were sitting in London, Oliver Tambo, eating donor money, pretending to be fighting a war, going to United States, asking about Michael Jackson to contribute, but Stevie Wonder, they contributed their monies, United Nations. That's the thing, Afrikaners, they went overseas to mobilize with, listen, these guys, they want to expropriate our farms. And of which it's true. They want to expropriate our farms. You can argue ownership and, another day. But for me, if there's Van der Merwe and I am fed, and there's Thandi Modise who killed pigs, I will choose Van der Merwe all the time because I know that I'm going to get chickens, which are not Obama chickens that were brought in here, which has got arsenic waters and being fed drugs and all that. I will choose, a local guy all the time. So it's very funny that we choose to be a rainbow nation when it suits us. Yeah, according to my, take, Van der Merwe, people may complain and they say he is racist, but there will be a company owned by Van der Merwe for years. People paid their salaries on time, as opposed to our BEE brothers. Our BEE brothers, they will loot millions instead of paying employees and go buy cars, the Lamborghinis, the Ferraris, and flaunt shippings, taverns, a bill, about $1 million. That is the problem that I have with these guys. Even when they are talking about expropriation, I know it for a fact that they don't mean it. It's like in Zimbabwe, when Robert Mugabe started talking about land, it's because he was losing the elections, the voters, and he started to look for a subject or an issue that had a mileage. these guys, with little or more than we have, I mean, they're controlling the state. The state is the biggest supplier, buyer of everything. They could have changed black lives long before we even touch the issue of land. And the issue of land is not something new. It was raised by PAC 1994. They pushed it aside because at that time they wanted the convenience. They wanted to get into state offices. They wanted to attain the state power. Abu Mandela. They got in there. And then when people started to be exhausted of their corruption, they look, what is the issue that we need to push? Because these guys, they're always looking for issues, that resonate with the people. Hence, many of these politicians, they've had farms. What have they produced? And if the ANC, they are saying they're a multi-racial organization, broad church, why does it matter if the farmer is white or black? Because at the end, we'll all be fed. If companies are black or white employing us, does it matter if the company is black or white, but doing everything that it needs to do? For me, it doesn't matter. But I can tell you, ever since these guys, they came on board, we started to deteriorate. Everything is deteriorating. Even mines that they took after white owners. I mean, there's Aurora mine, where the Kulubuses of this world, Mandela's grandchildren, they were involved there. That mine, it ended up, workers not being paid, sleeping there, Baba Buzamazama. Because everything that these guys have touched, these ANC comrades have touched, just turned into smoke. Everything that they touch, they destroy. Even themselves, they are plugged in, bombig, into white companies. But Trevor Manuel's working in about Rothschild, because they know it themselves, So for me, it doesn't matter that much who owns the farm. And I can tell you, majority of the people you go, what is it that we want? They want a job. They want to send their kids to school. They want to be fed. They're not going to say, hey, transformation, we need, BEE, because the very same BEE is utilized by the politicians, not the masses. When this guy is saying we need to transform, they're simply saying we must replace Ufandermeva, not any regular Joe or black guy in the street. You must replace a Dutoit with a comrade. So for many people, it doesn't matter. These guys, what they should be doing, they should build the economy, not take the very few companies that are there and try to transform. The best way to transform is to build new things, like the Afrikaners when they came. The English were there. They did not say, the English, give us your minds. They said, you know what, we're going to start our things, Sampo. They started Abo Sosol. They started, about South African railways, infrastructure. They employed poor Afrikaners. The ANC should have done that. Instead of renaming streets and projects and clinics, they should have built more things. They had the capacity, they had the money, built new banks. But they were not interested in that. They were not ready to govern. They were thugs coming from failed states. They've seen looting in countries like Tanzania, Uganda. It was going to be easier if these guys, they were in exile, probably in first world countries, Norway's, and Belgium. Maybe there would have been advantage and seen how a good, governance, how a state is run. But unfortunately, they were not, privileged, to see what is a good state. Because Norma's complainers said to look at Johannesburg, they become surprised because they've never seen a clean Joburg. They've never seen a clean Pietermaritzburg. they become surprised with what are they complaining about. Many of them, they went to Bantustan, they left here as teenagers. So for me, the land expropriation is a convenience for them so that they can get more votes, and some of them, plugged into companies, because when Julius Malema raised this issue, when he was still within the ANC, he said, we need to expropriate, including mines, nationalize them, and then open up 30% of that to BEE. And we know that this BEE is not for me and you, and nobody, and no name in the street. It's for them. Your Tokyos, your Mutsipes, all of these guys, your Kwedemantashes. So for me now, as long as they can address, the infrastructure, build more companies, capacitate estate, so that, we can empower people. It doesn't matter if Elon Musk, brings the Starlink here and he's a 100% owner. By virtue of he's here, he's going to employ, people who are in a majority, which is blacks, then colored Indians. So for me now, it doesn't matter. But now, what surprises me is because the Afrikaners, they've been complaining, raising these issues, coupled with the issues, it's genocide, of which there is genocide.
Before you start with that, right, I wanted to ask.
Yes.
The Stats released, Stats SA released the unemployment rates recently, right?
Yes.
And they said that
2% plus,
it's increased by 1%.
I believe that it's probably 60%. They're not telling us the real thing. That's my perspective. That's my opinion. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, they said that the majority comes from Northwest, and that's where we know that it's because of the mines that people are getting employed or not, right?
Yes.
So what do you think is happening right now that most of the unemployment is coming from that side?
I never really thought much about it, and for one good reason, because whenever government release stats, I've lost, faith in these guys. I don't believe them, because I've met many people who are working in the government and at the highest level. Whenever they release stats, they'll, tell me and say, Ike, they are lying, these guys. Even the stats of illegal immigrants. Because I remember there was this 15 million figure. I remember they were saying, no, there's 290,000 Zimbabweans. I said, no, the half of Zimbabwe is here. Every state globally, they were saying half of Zimbabwe is here. The other, percentages is in the UK. So I don't believe the ANC. But as for the Northwest, I don't think that the Northwest is harshly hit differently from other provinces. But it's quite sad if the Northwest it has the highest number, because under Mangope, the Northwest was doing well. And these guys, when they came in, they destroyed everything. The infrastructure that Chief Lucas Mangope had, the factories, maybe, that is also a contributing factor, because there were radio stations, television stations. Because remember, Northwest was far advanced compared to other Bantustan states. And obviously when they targeted it, many people lost jobs since 1994. Institutions, they killed them. Used to have Abu Medunsa Lapaya. Today, if you go to Medunsa, you will cry. The infrastructure, as Northwest, it has the highest number of potholes, followed by Ebo Free State. I think Gauteng one day it will get there. So that is that. Probably because they've destroyed everything that Chief Lucas Mangope built. But unlike other provinces where they still, kept, and when they kept that infrastructure, employment is still there. But they're losing,
Yeah. I think they said a few mines were closed down or something. That's why the people lost their jobs.
Yes, because these guys, they came in. After coming in, you started seeing Amazamazamas. And there is also a study, saying that the Zamazamas, they are linked to mine bosses. And you check the mine that closed, is it Aurora mine, where the Kulubuses of the world were there. And before that, it was Khadima Mutlante and Abundabanzele, Pamutsi Gold. And then they started not paying workers. And workers, they started going underground as Zamazamas. And where do these guys sell this gold? Because for it to go outside the country, you need certain powers. And there are people who are saying they sell this gold to the very same former mine owners or mine owners of the day, because now it's even cheaper for these mine owners. They don't have to pay these workers, certain benefits, pension, medical aid. They just take the gold, away from them for a song. That's why other workers, they will tell you, with underground, we do bump into illegal mine workers. But in Phazamisi, they work side by side, and these guys, they go back to the so-called legit mine owners. I was listening to the radio station. One guy, he was saying he's involved in mining, but they want to kill him because his competition or the competitors, they're using zamazamas. They are mining illegally, but on top, they look legit. They don't employ people. So maybe that's a new crime that is happening in the mining sector. They're dismissing workers and using Abu Zamazama, because there, you can also push your money laundering, your black diamonds, and, become a gold mafia. So that is that. But for me, racial laws, 30 years later, I mean, up to, what end? Up to what end do you speak of BEE? You can't be speaking of BEE 50 years later, 30 years later. By now, we should have transformed. ANC had more than enough time to transform. I mean, the National Party, they took power in 1948. By 1980, they've done away with the Afrikaner poverty. So how long does it take for the ANC? It will take them another 100 years, because they must loot, because there's always, another group of new looters who want to come in. They must also loot, because it's their turn to eat. So for me, I don't blame the Afrikaners and the people who went to United States. And I wish I could be one of them. I wish I could be one of them, because black people here in South Africa, they're like in prison. We don't have a Traore. We can't go to Botswana and say, help us. We can't go to Zimbabwe. At least, and one thing I like about white people, they'll never leave their own, where they are. Whether it's in China, they will come up. It is the right thing to do, They speak for themselves. They speak for their own. And then we have a problem with that. And therefore, I cannot criticize them, because they're standing up to a bully. The ANC is bullying us all. Even if they falter in their fight, I will ignore that, because we are facing, the biggest dragon, the biggest bully, which is the ANC, the biggest bully which arrested us, with globalization, laws that they've, I don't know, they've imported globalistic laws that killed our industries, about WTO, they've killed our textiles, they've killed manufacturing for the benefit of a few individuals. They've surrendered South Africa to China. We used to manufacture here in South Africa. We are ahead of China in the 60s. China was a backward country. We used to say, Ama China Dlabantu, which meant that the Chinese, they eat people. They were so backward. But today, the Chinese, they are 1,000 years ahead of us. And we're supposed to, push, but we've surrendered industries to China. And for me, to be honest, I wish Nami, I could go to United States, because there is a genocide in this country. We are being killed. The roads are being spiked. We don't have borders. People are coming. We've got new crimes that never existed. And farmers, in the main, they never, experience so much killings pre-94 as opposed to now. Even in our cities, we are being killed, not as darkies. And we have no way to run, because Nigeria is a ghetto. Yeah, I'm listening.
Yes. So now you're saying that you also wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I would go to United States. I'll run away because I'm black fatigue.
As a refugee, you wouldn't also mind that status.
I will run to United States if I had to run away from black communities the same way as the ANC puppet leaders. They run away from Soweto to Thamsanqa. They're running away from their own people because they cannot live where they govern. They know that they are terrible. That's why they follow white people wherever they go. They go to stay in city. Sandton, Rivonia today is deteriorating. Sandton is deteriorating. Their potholes, robots are not working in every city. We've got Abonyaupe conducting traffic, Abonyaupe killing robots so that they can conduct traffic for a song and monies. And they know that, our cities are dilapidated. ANC leaders don't live with the people. They are protected. They are shielded by blue lights. I'll run away. I'll go to exile because this country, it needs, a greater intervention. Not even Jesus can save this country. It needs more than Jesus. It needs more than God because we're, in Mad Max City. Yeah, there's a movie, but in Mad Max, we are going there, and there is no hope. I'll go to United States. I'll go to Canada. Yes.
But remember now, they're not going to the United States because of what's really happened. Because remember now, it's because of the white genocide, which is not true, right? Because now they're saying that white farmers are being killed and all of that, and that is not true. That's why now Trump decided to do that so that they could get the refugee status.
Well, you can argue your politicians, if they're going to sing Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, now. I sang that song in the 80s, and then after that, these guys are in power. I mean, here we're facing how many white people? 7 million or less than. Are you really threatened by 7 million? If you've got state power, you've got the police, you've got soldiers, you can build, new factories, new companies, new cities. You're not doing that. And then in your response, you sing Kill the Farmer. It shows that you lack intelligence. I mean, your response, you're in government, you're an MP. Okay, fine. Let's say Afrikaners don't oppose you. They say, okay, sing Kill the Farmer, Kill the Poor. What do you benefit out of that? Do you get new houses? Even if you can sing that song, Kill the Poor, Kill the Farmer. But you singing the song now, it also adds to the environment, the tension. Sometimes you need to be wise.
Because you said earlier that one of the reasons that the ANC would come up with all of these things, we were talking about the land, saying that the reason they came up with this act is just so they could get more voters. So do you think that the song also could be related to that?
Yeah, these guys, they're using black anger to empower themselves. They're using black poverty the same way as they crafted BEE laws, not to empower black people. That's why I hate BEE. I hate BEE laws because these guys, they're using BEE to go bargain to Rupert, to the open hammers and say, you know what, if you don't put me here, as one of the shareholders, these guys, they're going to come and take it, take all of it and destroy it. The same way as Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela did not mean to nationalize. When he came out of jail, he was talking, we will nationalize, we'll nationalize. He didn't mean that. He scared Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer said, let's give them 2% because they're going to come and destroy it. We need to make them responsible for it. They need to feel, ownership. And then all of a sudden, they move from RTP to GIA. Like that. Nelson Mandela said, you know what? GIA is the policy of the ANC. Long before his term was over, before 5 years, Tokyo Sukwale was a premier of Gauteng. Before the year ended, he relinquished the post, he went to BEE. That's what they wanted in the first place. To scare white people. White people saying, no, what is it that they want? Unfortunately now, white people no longer get scared. They are fatigued. They're black fatigued now. Because they realize that these guys, they've been crying wolf for a long time. They just want Gucci. They want Louis Vuitton. So if white people build companies, does it matter? If these guys at the top, it's a family business, it's the son, daughter, whatever, but they're employing majority blacks, does it matter? Does it matter if Elon Musk and Errol Musk come here and his people, but on the floor managerial positions, they're employing South Africans. Does it matter if, the ownership 30% is not given to Gwede Mantashe, Tony Yangeni, Cyril Ramaphosa? For me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to a man in the street.
It does matter up to a certain extent, because now they will now start hiring the white people in those managerial positions, right? And then the black people would be that of the factory, which is what has been going on.
If you can build enough factories here, there is so much of white people that we can employ. Eventually they run out because there are few white people. Eventually you're gonna need black people. And there are certain situations where you cannot avoid, to hire per demographics, because sometimes you need language, to penetrate certain markets. You need somebody who understands certain people better. So this thing of black on white, I mean, even if themselves create more companies, create policies, that enable people to start companies, they will, employ their people more. But unfortunately, these guys, they just want to eat at the top. They're not interested in building new things. They want to be plugged in a few companies that are existing, white companies. You are not building the economy. You are not growing the cake bigger. You're simply taking from John, you give it to Benny. But they must grow it bigger. I mean, China, go to Dubai, they had few buildings, few companies back in the days. Now there's more. More people are employed. They even want foreigners to come and work there. So unfortunately, the ANC government, they were not ready to govern. And they are just lootist, Yeah, so for me now, ANC government, it is a criminal government, a genocidal government, and it surprises me when they're talking of treason, because they've been treasonous enough. The money that they've looted, it's big enough to have changed, or could have changed black lives. Schools, under Thabo Mbeki, lots of things were destroyed under Thabo Mbeki. The so-called intelligent president, he privatized everything, outsourced everything for his friends. So I don't blame Afrikaners for going overseas and crying genocide, because it is true. We've got foreigners, Mozambicans, Zimbabweans killing farmers, Basutus.
Which part is true? The white genocide.
There is a white genocide. There is a black genocide. There is a genocide. All of us.
So it's not racially. It's because now, if you were saying that, because I don't see any white farmers being killed, targeted, right? I don't see that. And they have released the stats to say that. I'm not actually sure if they have released it, but they have said that it's not just white farmers that are being killed, and it's not only just farmers that are being killed. So it's just the crime overall in South Africa.
You know what? If black people, they are being killed, why can't they do something about it? Against this government, sue the government, take the government, to court and say the Minister of Police is not doing his job. Why do they have a problem when another person is being killed and standing up doing something about that? Why is it always whataboutism? Why is always black and white? If there's two of us, and we are both being killed, or our family is being killed, may I stand up? Why do you have a problem with me? Why do black people have a problem when the government of the day is dragged to court by Afriforum? It's not like, the ANC government is helping us, They're an enemy even to us. The ANC is the enemy of a black person, enemy number one, because they're, controlling the government of the day. In the past, we knew who was the enemy. The National Party was the enemy. All of a sudden now, our enemy is poverty, but we are not told, Gucci, who's creating this poverty. It is the ANC. The ANC is enemy number one. If another one is standing to a bully, let this guy stand to a bully.
But now, if you were standing to a bully, because remember, the people are not saying that this is happening in this manner. They are saying that in South Africa, the black people are killing the white farmers.
Let me put context to that. Mm-hmm. I usually say that because of open borders, and we started seeing many of these farm killings. Normally I say
foreigners. Of white or black and white? All races?
when I watch TV, normally I see white farmers being killed, being raped, by illegal foreigners in the main. In the main, it's legal foreigners who are coming here. Some they've been employed in the farms, and then they come back, they steal the buggy, steal guns and kill the farm owner. These are people who've done that, in Zimbabwe. We've never done that during apartheid. They've done that in Mozambique, in Kenya. And government of the day, it has a duty to protect its people, to enforce its laws, the bylaws, immigration laws, employment laws, to say, we've got intruders, invaders, go Mozambique, who are killing these people because they're an easy target, they're isolated. It is true, there are farmers being killed. You can argue the number. We are also being killed, and it is not right for black people when somebody else is saying, I'm experiencing crime. And then you say, shut up, because I'm also experiencing crime. No, this person is saying, I've been raped. And when he says, no, shut up. Nami, last week my daughter was raped. No, you chose to keep quiet. But now they chose to go to the United States. There's a Donald Trump who's saying, I'm intervening. And then, bravo, good for them.
I don't think that's that's the notion here. So here, these people are saying they are being targeted as white farmers, right? So
they're in a majority.
You just said right now that they isolated. So then
they're in a majority. I'm saying the farmers, they're isolated.
Majority of the
no. I'm saying because their living situation. You find one house there, one house there.
Yes.
And the people who are used to killing farmers, where they come from.
Yes.
In Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, they are killing them again. They're following them here. They've killed them as late as 2001 in Zimbabwe. They're following him here. The government of the day should be saying, you know what? Hey, let us protect our farmers because these guys, in spite of what happened during apartheid, but they fed our people. In spite of the atrocities, we were fed. We're eating white maize. When the rest of Africa was eating raw mealies, we were fed. We're eating best quality chicken, bo rainbow, bo elisin. There's this chicken called Farmer's Brown, where they were fed peanuts, the chickens. Under the farmers, these are Afrikaners who took care of us. They built schools, ambars. They built infrastructure that we are using today. They built the Tuli house, where the ANC is housed. Today their hope was outside. And then whenever you come, because they are white, then it's okay for them to be killed by foreigners. No. Just as we are killed by foreigners.
No. So now let's try and
you sing a song. You sing a song that adds to that. The people of Mozambique, they might not understand these guys are singing as a rhetoric because they want to open doors for themselves. You say kill the farm to gain what? I mean, there are certain things that even if they say sing that song, Tina, as black people, we like to fight for things that even if we win, we are allowed to gain those things that we are fighting for. Our lives don't change. Let us sing kill the poor, kill the farmer. In the end, what do we benefit?
So just to get an understanding, right? I am saying that the white farmers are not being targeted, right? They might be targeted because of the isolation. That's being
targeted
but it's not necessarily I'm going to kill a white farmer. It's because I'm going to kill an isolated house or I'm going to do crime there. So it's not a crime of saying they don't set those people, no matter where they're from, and say that it's a white man. That is a farmer and I'm going to kill them. They just find it easier because of the isolation.
You ask them.
No, I did not.
They know that majority of the people who farm, they are whites. They're coming there.
But there are black farmers that are being killed as well.
Yes.
Yes, and if we can look at the stats, percentage-wise, right, you might find that it's actually the same.
For me, I'm saying, if I'm shooting, I go to the stadium, rugby it's playing, and I spray everyone with an AK. And I go to another stadium in Cape Town, spray everyone with an AK. Of course, along the way, maybe there will be I'm a pogo black guy saying, hey, Siya Kolisi, get killed. Then you cannot use that one person and say, yeah, there's also a one person, over 20 people who are killed. But majority of the people who are coming here, as I'm saying, they've killed farmers before in their land. And before 1994, I didn't see people from Soweto by Mafamine, killing people. Because remember, the Afrikaners, they are Christian people, they are patriarchal, all those things. They taught us that, we are Christian in this country. Thou shalt not kill. So thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. We believed in Christ, it's in the main. But the people who are coming here, of late, the government of the day was supposed to intervene. All these guys, we check whenever there's a farm killing, there's always a Zimbabwean.
But let me give you an example, right? Remember there was a
And most of these Mozambican Zimbabweans, where do you find them? In the EFF. And then the leader of the EFF, these things kill the poor. And Guti, in your camp, you've got foreigners who are killing, they are killing machines.
He said he didn't sing the song.
I don't think they're killing machines, buddy. Let's just cut that one.
Okay, but
yeah,
no, I just wanted to give you this example, right? In terms of the targeted white farmers, right? Because I still believe that they're not being targeted. Remember, there was a thing in South Africa, right, where VW Polo drivers, right, were being targeted. The car, so anybody driving that car, it could be a woman, right? It could be a man, teenagers, it doesn't matter. That was being targeted. And the reasons for that was that it's easier to do this. VW is a faster, what is the turbo of VW? So they can get away quickly. It's easier to, what do they do when they take away the parts? To strip it, right? And it's easier, they have customers already for the parts that they want to sell.
If I follow an example, somebody who's been hijacked driving a BMW, a Corolla would say, no, VWs were not being targeted. If I use your example, because I'm driving a Corolla, they also took my Corolla. It's the same example you're using when I'm saying, in the main, farmers are white. They are being killed in numbers. Then once in a while they kill the black farmers. You cannot say that they're not being targeted. The same way,
the majority.
as you're saying, the majority, they were stealing a VW Polo.
Yes.
And then a guy who drives a BMW comes and says, no, that's not true that you're being targeted because I'm driving a BMW, I've been hijacked, I was driving a Volvo. That's what you're trying to say.
No, what I am saying is that the cars, right, were being targeted because of those benefits that they had. Do you understand? So now I'm going back to the killings benefits, let's say, right? To the farmers. We spoke about their houses being isolated, right? Making them an easier target, or making the house an easier target to go to, right? They don't know what's in that house, but what they know is that it's a farmer and this is what's happening. And it's easier to do this.
And some of them have worked there.
Some of them might have worked because it's easier. You have to know how things work in order for you to get that. So because my point is still that we do have white farmers being the majority, right? But we also have black ones that are being killed. So I don't think it's a target on the white people only. I think it's a target.
I don't think you hear yourself, because if you say that, I could say that, if you're saying the Apollos being targeted, I can't say they are being targeted because we also have a minibus being stolen. We also have a Corolla being stolen. But by virtue of that, that maybe 90% or 80% they are white farmers. You're targeting them if you're saying, you're going to go after the farmers.
No, I don't think they really look at that, right? The thing is that the majority are white. You see, that is the problem. But the other thing is that the black people are also being killed, right? The reason I could have given any example.
Let's say you are targeting people with iPhones, or maybe you want iPhones. Mm-hmm. There could be a poor guy in a shack who's got an iPhone. Mm-hmm. But the majority of the people will be middle class, certain people at a certain level. And then the criminals, they will go for those people. That's being targeted. No. But once in a while, a person can say, but I live in a shack, they took my phone. You are not being targeted because I'm also having an iPhone, they took it. But the criminals, they know that in majority.
No, but you just said right now that most of the people that are killing these people have worked there, isn't it? So you must know the story.
Some of them have worked there because they are illegal foreigners who've been employed there because of cheaper labor that they bring. They've been there, they've seen in the ins and outs. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And some of them, they come here, they cannot be traced, and And why I'm saying this is because I'm basing it on the stats pre-94 and post-94.
Yes.
Pre-94, we didn't experience farm killings in this way. There'll be once in a while, but it was not rampant like this. There was a time when, almost every week or every month, farm murder. And you say, where does that come from? Because South Africans, there are certain crimes that they don't do. And you've got a lead in that climax. Who lacks wisdom? You want to push the slogan, kill the farmer, kill the poor. To benefit what?
Yes, but I'm still going back to the targeted, right? Because my thing is that, right? If, for an example, you also talked about the traffic lights, that the Nyaope people are the ones that are doing that, and the crime behind all of that, right? So if I specialize in this particular crime, what crime am I going to be doing? That crime that I specialize in.
The crime of street lights.
Yeah, so if they specialize in the farmers' side of things, of killing farmers, right? After they kill this one, they go to the other one, right? After they kill this one, they go to the other one, right? And you find that they start in a certain area, right? That's how it grows. That's how we get to know about these things, because they keep on happening.
Yeah.
Right? So now they start in this area, right, where majority is white people and there's just one black farmer. They kill all of them, right? They go to the next area, they do the same thing, right? Is it still race, or is it the farmers? That's all I need to understand. Even if it's those people from Mars and
in the majority, they are white.
Yes.
If you're targeting farmers, you're almost targeting whites. If you go to KZN,
how is it? So you think that
if you're going to KZN and start shooting taxi drivers, you're mainly killing the Zulus, and the Zulu king must intervene, and say, "Hey man, abantu bambaya shona." And here in the majority, the farmers are white. That's why Donald Trump is also standing up. And also there are other issues for Israel. That South Africa has taken an anti-stand against Israel, about expropriation. There's so many issues that are going on.
But if it's racially motivated, then why are they still doing it to black farmers when they find them?
Look, you see, with criminals, even back in the 80s, there were criminals who were targeting whites. But there were those, who found it easy. Let's say maybe they see a black guy driving a Mercedes-Benz, or and then say, it doesn't mean when we're saying in the 80s, the target was the system. There are those, of us who targeted our own people. My father's car used to be stolen almost every second month by black people. It doesn't mean 100% there were no black criminals targeting black people. We just narrow things to the greater number. There will be those criminals who are targeting their other black people, but in the main, they know their target. They're targeting white people because they think that these guys, they've got money, they've got guns, and they are used to it. So, and then you come, and you want to water that down. It's not fair just because they are white. For me, to be honest, I find it interesting that some of us who lived under apartheid, we are so fatigued by this black and white politics, but it's people who never lived under apartheid, who are now coming, apartheid this. I said, I lived under apartheid. I know how it was like. I lived under sanctions, but it's people who were never there. They talk as if they were there. They faced the Holocaust. And some of us, we just want to move. And we think that the ANC is Western. It has subjected us to miseries that we've never experienced before. So the white people who are here, they've created companies that employed our parents. We went to school. They created the infrastructure, hospitals. We are the best of the best in the continent. Today, they'll tell you that Air Force, they've got 3 helicopters. 2 of them are not working. The other one needs service. So, that said, We've got an aviation without flights. We've got navy without, material. But you could come make a busy 2 or 1. So we've seen the worst and the best of Afrikaners. So for me, I thought that, as they were pushing that rainbow nation, for me, this black and white politics, I'm tired of it, because I've seen, my people behaving worse, subjecting their own, and it's even worse when you're subjected by your own people, abusing them. Women, before they get jobs, the Pagamaspala municipalities, sex for jobs. Afrikaners never did that. I don't remember, our sisters coming back. But, before we get employed at municipalities, these guys, they sleep with us. And I can tell you, the number of people killed politically, very few, because there were few black people who were political. Afrikaners, they did not just go in the street and kill everyone. They knew that they are targeting the communists, the ANC. Very few. We can count the number. There are incidences like Soweto uprising, which was unfortunate, and I'm not defending them, but I'm saying they knew who they wanted, from 1948 to 1994 or 1990, the number is quite less compared to the genocide that we are facing now. People unemployed, people infected under Thabo Mbeki. Even now, since you don't have the aid, you're going to see infections rising. We are being told now with people over the age of 50, they are now getting HIVs, under this government. Yeah, but other than that, just in closing on this issue, my refugees, I wish that there was, a decent country now, somewhere that I could go to as a Daki, because I feel under the ANC, it doesn't matter if you're educated or not. Unlike, back in the days, if you're a teacher, you knew which the more I accumulate qualifications over category A, category B, category. Now it doesn't matter. It's who you know. They're putting their children, to loot. They're overpricing everything. Our tax money. Some of us are highly taxed, and it's very painful to watch. People, dunderheads. Majority of these people in government, they will not work anywhere else. That's why they're hanging for dear life. So, but I hope, and I wish that something would, happen. I'm a prisoner of hope. I will leave it at that. I'm a prisoner of hope, but unfortunately, an average black person is more concerned about alcohol, is more concerned about soccer, is more concerned about gossip, is more concerned about TV program, what's playing. They're not concerned about changing their lives. That is the unfortunate thing, which is very tiring.
How would they even begin to change their lives? Because all these, they're the ones that have the political means, to put the avenues in place in order for the black person to not be interested in alcohol. You see, I, for one, don't blame a 2000 and the black person who is with the sundowns and drinking, because how? What are they going to do? There's no infrastructure. It's dilapidated.
You can't be a perpetual victim. Even, the smallest of creature, when you step on top of it, you can see which it wants to fight back. It wants to resist. We cannot just lie down, and say, what can we do? We do have the power. We've got numbers, and we can form ourselves into, institutions, unions, and take this government to court, like the Afriforum. Afriforum, they've been successful. They've built institutions, they've built universities, they contributed their monies. Till now, the only time we contribute is for Stockfell, so that we can get drunk and do dance challenges. That's where we excel. We can do so much. We can protest, like we did in the past, isolate these guys. If they have companies, some of them, I've seen they've got buildings, some are townhouses. They've got double buildings, townhouses. Avoid those townhouses if you're protesting against them. Make them fall. Where they put their monies, disinvest your monies. There's so many things. If government is failing, take it to court. Fight it. within the constitutional frameworks. I could tell you the other ones, but I don't want to. But we can fight. You're not helpless.
But do the black people have that information?
Exactly.
They do have, but they're waiting for the Messiah because they like the Messiah, syndrome, the Messiah concept, because we were told that Moses led the children of Israel. Even now, I meet so many people, they keep on saying, I start an organization. And you know what is the saddest part? What that is, you start that organization, you're on your own, they'll go back to the ANC. Or when they come hungry, they will disrupt here, because they're hungry, and then play for the politicians in the ANC so that they get captured, co-opted, They don't come with that mentality. I've been to many civil organizations that we have started. People, when they come in there with bad motives, darkies. They want to be captured. That's why I say black people don't hate corruption. They hate it when it's not benefiting them or when it's not them, who are corrupt there. So unfortunately, we are wired differently. Other nationalities, I'm not saying they're not looting, but they've got a collective vision. I mean, if you read a book like The Lost Boys, the Afrikaners are Bruder Bond, there are those who are stealing money, but they were told, if you steal money, don't eat it here because you'll upset the other Afrikaners. Go to France, go to somewhere. Here we are building. And they didn't steal 98% of the budget. We'll steal maybe 2%, out of, 10 million, maybe still 200,000 here. Us, we steal everything, and we come back for some more. So unfortunately, us darkies, we can never be crying forever, So it is tiring because we do have the power, and if we vote these people back into office, even at local government where we have the power to vote ourselves, form ourselves into independent candidates, we don't do that. We still give these guys powers. And then there are those who are defending them. So unfortunately, it is depressing for darkies. But who knows? But subscribe, comments.
Yes, like as well.
We must like
and share.
And share. Yeah. So that is it. We're done. Isn't done for today.
No.
No.